Hey guys, welcome back again to our exciting series of cyber blogs presented by VIEH group. So today basically we are going to talk about the top 20 critical security controls for effective cyber defense. So let's start this video without wasting our time. So at first let's discuss a little bit about today's topic, basically what we are going to cover and what is basically this typical terms called CISA critical security controls. So basically, as we all know, with data breaches increasing more than ever, organizations have to ensure that they have all necessary security controls in place to keep their data safe. As a response to growing security threat, the SANS Institute, together with the Center of Internet Security, so-called CIS, and other organizations, developed the 20 critical security controls, which is so-called CSC. So these two topic will be going to be highlighted more and more in this video. So first, this is all about for effective cyber defense. The CIS and CSC provide IT pros with a prioritized focus set of actions to help them stop most dangerous cyber attack and ensure data security. So in this video, we will going to explain the top 20 controls in the CIS CSC and why each of them is critical, and then offer 5 steps for implementing the control in a pragmatic way. So, so basically we'll show you a complete list of CIS. So the complete list of CIS critical security controls, basically the list which we are going to show you will be the 6.1 version. Okay, so the CIS CSC is the set of 20 control, something called the SANS top 20, designed to help organizations safeguard their system and data from known attack vectors. It can also be effective guide for companies that do not yet not have a coherent security program. Although the CIS control are not a replacement for any existence compliances scheme. The control map is several major compliances framework. Some examples something like NIST cybersecurity framework and regulations which is maybe like PCI, DSS and HIPAA. So the top 20 controls are based on the latest information about common attacks and reflected the combined knowledge of commercial forensic expert, individual penetration testers, and contributors from USA government agency. So let's start from the first point, which is inventory of authorized and unauthorized devices. So let's have a basic discussion on this first topic. So basically, organization must have actively manage all the hardware devices on the network so that only authorized devices are given access and unauthorized device can be quickly identified and disconnected before they inflict any harm. So now the question is like, why is this critical? So basically, attackers are continuously scanning the address space of organizations, waiting for new and unprotected system to be attached to the network. So this control is especially critical for organizations that allow BYOD. So since hackers are specifically looking for devices that come and go off the enterprise network. Second, inventory of authorized and unauthorized software. So organizations must actively manage all software on the network. So only authorized software is installed. Security measures like application whitelisting can enable organization to quickly find authorized software before it has been installed. Now, why is this critical? So basically, attackers look for vulnerability or vulnerable versions of software that can be remotely exploited. So they can distribute hostile web pages, media files, and other content, or maybe use zero-day exploit that take advantage of unknown vulnerability. So therefore, Proper knowledge of what software has been deployed in your organization is essential for data security and privacy. Third part, secure configurations for hardware and software. So companies need to establish, implement, and manage the security configuration of laptop, server, and workstations. Companies have to follow strict configuration management and implementation or implement changes control process to prevent attacks from exploiting vulnerability service and setting. So now why is this critical? So manufacturers and resellers design the default configuration of operating system and applications for ease of development and use, not strong security. So open source or maybe open service and ports as well as default account or password can be exploitable in their default state. So companies have to develop configuration setting with good security properties. Fourth point, continuous vulnerability assessment and remedies or remediation. So this state like organizations need to continuously acquire asset and take action on new information. So there are some example like software update, patches, security advisories and threat bulletins. So these are basically to identify and remediate vulnerability attacks could otherwise use the penetration or penetrate, maybe they can penetrate their network. So why is this critical? So as soon as research report new vulnerabilities, a race start among all relevant parties. Culprit strives to use the vulnerability for an attack. Vendors deploy patches or updates, and defenders start performing risk assessment or regression testing. So attackers have access to the same information everywhere else and can take advantage of gaps between the appearance of new knowledge and remediation. So this is all about 4 point. Now let's move to fifth point, which is control controlled use of administrative privilege. So this control requires company to use automated tools to monitor users behavior and keep track of how administrative privileges are assigned and used in order to prevent unauthorized access to critical systems. Why is this critical? So basically, the misuse of administrative privilege is a primary method of attackers to spread inside the enterprise. To gain administrative credentials, they can use phishing technique. They can maybe crack or guess the password for an administrative user. Or maybe they can elevate the privilege of a normal user account into an administrative account. So if you are from security background, then you are much more familiar with this topic. So if organizations do not have resources to monitor what's going on in their IT environment, it is easier for attackers to gain full control of their system. Fifth point we passed along, and now it's time for sixth point, maintenance, monitoring, and analysis of audit logs. So organizations need to collect, manage, and analyze event logs to detect aberrant activities and investigate security incident. Now, why is this critical? So because of lack of security logging and analysis enable attackers to hide their location and activities in the network. Even if the victim organizations knows which system have been compromised without complete logging record, it will be difficult for them to understand what an attacker has done so far and respond effectively to the security incident. 7 point. So this point is basically the last of this uh, second page PPT. So after that we'll move to our next PPT. So 7 point is something like email and web browser protection. So organizations need to ensure that only full supported web browsers and email client are used in the organization in order to minimize their attack surface. Why is this critical? So web browsers and email clients are a very common point of entry of hacker because of their high technical complexity and flexibility. They can create contents and spoof user into taking Action that can introduce malicious code and lead to loss of valuable data. Now let's move to another PPT 8 point, which is basically malware defenses. So organizations need to make sure they can control the installation and execution of malicious code at multiple points in the enterprises. So this control recommend using automated tool to continuously monitor workstations, servers, and mobile devices with antivirus, anti-spies, personal firewall, and maybe host-based IPS functionality. Now, why is this critical? So basically, modern malware can be fast moving and fast charging. It may be fast changing and it can enter through any number of points. Therefore, malware defense must be able to operate in the dynamic environment through large scale automation, updating and integration with process like incident response. 9 point limitations of control of network port protocol and services. So as you all know, organization must track and manage the port of, and maybe they should use port protocol and services on network devices to minimize the window of vulnerabilities available to attacker. Why is this critical? So basically attackers search for remotely accessible network services that are vulnerable for exploitation. So common example including poorly configured web server, mail servers, and file and printing server, as well as domain name system, which is so-called DNS server, that are installed by default on a variety of devices. So therefore it is critical to make sure that only ports, protocol, and services with a validate business need to run on each system. 10th point, data recovery capability. So company need to ensure the critical system and data are properly backed up on at least a weekly basis. So they also need to be have proven methodology for timing data recovery. So why is this critical? So basically attackers often make significant data or maybe significant changes of data, configuration and software. Without reliable backup of and recovery, it is difficult for organization to recover from attack. So this is all about data recovery capability. Now let's move to 11, which is secure configuration for network devices. So basically, as you all know, we should or maybe organization must establish, implement and actively manage the security configuration of network infrastructure devices such as router, firewall and switches. Why is this critical? Because of just as operating system and application, the default configuration for network infrastructure devices are geared for ease of deployment, not security. So in addition, network devices often becomes less securely configured over time. Attackers exploit these configurations flaws to gain access to networks or use a compromised machine to pose as a trusted system. 12 point, which is boundary defense. So basically organizations need to detect and correct the flow of information between network of different trust levels with a focus on data that could damage security. So the best defense is technology that provide deep visibility and control over data flows across the environment. So such as maybe IDS and IPS, which is so-called intrusion detection system and intrusion prevention system. So now the question is like, why is this critical? So basically, culprit often use configuration and architectural weakness on parameter system. So network devices and internet accessing client machine to gain initial access into the organization network. Now let's move to 13 point, which is data protection. So organization must use appropriate processes and tools to mitigate the risk of data exfiltration and ensure the integrity of sensitive information. Data protection is best achieved through the combination of encryption, integrity protection, and data loss prevention techniques. So why is this critical? So while many data leaks are deliberate theft, other instances of data loss or damage as a result of poor security practices or human errors. So to minimize this risk, organizations need to implement solutions that can help detect data exfiltration and mitigations the effect of data compromises. 14 point, which is control access based on the need to know. So basically, organizations need to be able to track, control, and secure access to their critical asset and easily determine which people, computers, or applications have a right to access these assets. So now the question is, why is this critical? So some organizations do not carefully identify and separate these most critical assets from less sensitive data, and users have access to more sensitive data than they need to be their job. So as a result, it is easier for a malicious insider or an attacker or malware that take over their account to steal important information or disrupted operations. So now let's move to our next PPT. So here's the 15 point, which is wireless access control. So organizations need to have processes and tool in place to track and control the use of wireless local area network, which is LANs and access point and wireless client system. They need to conduct network vulnerability scanning tool and ensure that all wireless devices connected to the network match an unauthorized configuration and security profile. Now, why is this critical? So basically, wireless devices are convenient vector for attackers to maintain long-term access into the IT environment since they do not require direct physical connect. For example, wireless clients used by employees as they travel are infected on a regular basis and later used as backdoors when they are reconnected to the organization network. 16 point, which is basically account monitoring and control. So it is critical for organization to actively manage the life cycle of user account, creation and use of deletion to minimize opportunity for attackers to leverage them. All system accounts need to be regularly reviewed, and account of former contractors and employees should be disabled as soon as the person leaves the company. Why is this critical? So basically, attackers required exploit inactive user account to gain legitimate access to an organization system and data, which make detection of attack more difficult. So now it's 17 point, which is security skills assessment and appropriate training to fill gaps. So basically, organizations have to identify the specific knowledge and skills they need to strengthen security. So this requires development and execution of a plan to identify gaps and fix them through policy, planning and training programs. So why is this critical? Because it is tempting of think of cyber defense as primarily in technical challenge. So however, employees' action are also critical to the success of security program. Attackers often use the human factors to plan exploitation. For example, by carefully crafting phishing messages that look like normal messages or working within the time windows for patching or log review. 18 point, which is application software security. So basically, organization must manage the security lifecycle of all software they use in order to detect and correct security weakness. In particular, they must regularly check that they use only the most current version of each application and that all the relevant patches are installed promptly. Now the question is like, why is this critical? So basically, attackers often take advantage of vulnerabilities in web-based applications and other software. They can inject a specific exploit, including buffer overflow, SQL injection attack, cross-site scripting, and clickjacking of code to gain control over vulnerable machines. Now let's move to our 19th point, which is basically incident response and management. So, as per my concern, organizations need to develop and implement proper incident response, which include plans, defined roles, training, management, oversight, and other measures that will help them discover attacks and contain damage more effectively. Now, why is this critical? Because security incidents are now a normal part of our daily life. Even large and well-funded enterprises struggles to keep up with the evolving cyber threat landscape. So sadly, in most cases, the chance of successful cyber attacks is not if but when. Without an incident response plan, an organization may not discover an attack until it inflicts serious harm, or be able to eradicate the attacker's presence and restore the integrity of the network and system. Now, the last point of this CIS critical security control is something like penetration test and red team exercise. So, the final controls requires organization to access the overall strength of their defenses, the technology, the process, and the by conducting regular external and internal penetration tests. So this will enable them to identify vulnerability and attack vector that can be used to exploit system. Now the point is, why is this critical? So basically attackers can exploit the gap between good defense intention and their implementation, such as the time window between the announcement of a vulnerability, the availability of a vendor patch and patch installation. So, in a complex environment, when technology is constantly evolving, organizations should periodically test their defense to identify gaps and fix them before the attacks occur. So, this is all about 20 list of CIS critical security control. Now, let's move to our another part of implementation the control, pragmatic approach. So, getting value from a CIS critical control system does not necessarily mean implementation of all 20 controls at once. So, few organizations have the budget, human resources, and time required to implement the entire set of control simulations or simultaneously. So, a pragmatic approach to implement the controls, including some of the following steps, which you can see on your screen. So first one is like discover your information asset and estimate their value. So perform risk assessment and think through potential attack against your system and data, including initial entry point, spread and damage. So prioritize the CIS control around your riskiest asset. Second point, compare your current security controls to the CIS control. So make note of each area where no security capabilities exist or where additional work is needed. So the third point is develop a plan for adopting the most valuable new security control and improving the operations effectiveness of your existing controls. So the fourth point is like obtaining management buy-in for the plan and form line of business commitments for necessary financial and responsible support. The last point of this implementation of control is something like implementation or implement the control. So keep an eye on trends that could introduce new risks to your organization, measure progress and risk reduction and communicate your finding. So this is all about this video. So if you want to know more about 20 critical security controls, visit the official website of CIS Center of Internet Security, which is basically www.cise or maybe cisecurity.org/controls. So yeah, this is all about this video. So thank you very much from the whole team of VIH group for watching this video. So if you like this video, you can follow us on Facebook, Insta, everywhere. You can just use @VIH group. You will find us there. So thank you very much. Stay tuned.